In prison, medical emergencies don't become urgent until it's too late.
From sidewalk to cell block. A child of the concrete. The first thing the boy learned was how to disappear. Not in a magical way. Not in a way that impressed anyone. He learned how to make himself small, how to blend into corners, how to stand still when adults argued nearby, how to avoid eye contact when uniforms passed too close. On the streets, visibility was a risk. The ones who survived longest were the ones who learned when not to exist. He did not remember his mother's face clearly. What he remembered instead were fragments, the sound of her coughing at night, the smell of rain-soaked clothes, the way her voice changed when she was tired and angry at the same time. She used to call him close when the nights got cold, pressing him against her chest like she could hold the world away if she squeezed hard enough. Then one night, she didn't wake up. No dramatic goodbye. No last words. Just silence that lasted too long. By morning, the street had already decided his future. He was 7 years old. The street does not raise children, it hardens them. At first, he waited. Children believe in return. They believe adults leave and come back. They believe time bends for them. He sat near the same cracked wall for days, then weeks, hoping she would reappear with that familiar walk, the slight limp she had developed years earlier. She never did. The street noticed his stillness. It always does. Older boys appeared first. Not predators, scavengers. They knew the signs, a child with no routine, no adult shadow, no destination. They taught him quickly what mattered. Food came before pride. Silence came before honesty. Loyalty came before morality. He learned where to sleep without being kicked awake. He learned which dumpsters were checked last. He learned that stealing bread was less dangerous than stealing wallets. He learned that adults didn't see you unless you were causing trouble. And when they did see you, it was never with kindness. Hunger is a teacher with no mercy. Hunger stripped away innocence faster than fear ever could. At first, his stomach screamed. Later, it whispered. Eventually, it went quiet, conserving energy like a machine shutting down. He stole not because he wanted to, but because hunger rewires the brain. It makes wrong feel necessary and guilt feel expensive. The first thing he stole was an apple. He didn't eat it right away. He held it, turning it over in his hands, studying its smooth surface like it was something rare. When he finally bit into it, juice ran down his wrist. He laughed quietly, then panicked, looking around to see who might have heard. Laughter felt dangerous now. He learned to chew without sound. The first line he crossed. There is a moment every lost child remembers, not clearly, but deeply. A moment when survival crosses into something darker. For him, it was the night an older boy handed him a small package and said, "Just hold this. Don't ask." He didn't ask. Asking questions on the street marked you as weak or stupid. He held the package while the others argued nearby. When police lights flashed in the distance, his heart stopped. He thought they would see the fear on his face like a glowing sign. They didn't. Later, the older boy took the package back and handed him food in return. More food than he had eaten in days. That night, he slept full. The line had been crossed, even if he didn't know it yet. Street family is still a family, until it isn't. For a while, he belonged somewhere. The group wasn't kind, but it was consistent. They protected their own, not out of love, but out of strategy. He learned how to watch corners, how to warn with a whistle, how to run without looking back. He learned names he would later forget. Faces that would blur together over time. Promises that meant something only until morning. The street family didn't plan for the future. The future was a rumor. Then one night, everything scattered. A fight broke out. Someone pulled something sharp. Someone screamed. Sirens arrived too fast. He ran without knowing why, his legs moving on instinct alone. When he finally stopped, he was alone again. Growing older without growing up. By the time he was 12, his childhood was already a memory he didn't trust. He was taller now. Faster. Smarter in ways school never taught. He could read people in seconds, who was afraid, who was bluffing, who would chase, who wouldn't. His eyes missed nothing. But he couldn't read books. No one had taught him. When charity workers tried to talk to him, he nodded and smiled the way he had learned to do, saying just enough to be dismissed. Shelters felt like traps. Rules felt like cages. He had learned freedom in chaos, not safety in structure. That misunderstanding would cost him later. The wrong mentor. The man noticed him because the boy didn't look desperate. Desperate kids begged. This one watched. He was offered work that sounded simple. Legal enough on the surface. Watch this spot. Carry this bag. Deliver this message. He didn't ask what was inside because he already knew the answer didn't matter. Money arrived faster than hunger ever had. With money came clothes. With clothes came confidence. With confidence came mistakes. The man called him smart. That word was intoxicating. No one had ever said it before. He didn't realize mentorship can be another form of ownership. The lie that changed everything. The first real crime didn't feel real. It felt like a test. A small job. Nothing violent. Nothing dramatic. He was told it was safe. He was told he wouldn't get caught. He was told everyone did it. What he wasn't told was that the street doesn't forgive success. Someone talked. Someone always does. When the police grabbed him, it was sudden and clumsy. He didn't fight. He didn't run. His mind went blank, like a door slamming shut. In the holding room, the walls felt closer than any alley ever had. He was 14. The building did not look like a prison from the outside. That was the first lie. It had clean lines, neutral colors, and a sign that used words like rehabilitation and youth services. From a distance, it could have been a school or a government office. Only when the doors locked behind him did the truth announce itself. The sound was unmistakable. Metal on metal. Final. Uninterested. At 14, he learned that freedom can disappear quietly. A new world with old rules. Juvenile detention was not violent the way the streets were. There were no sudden ambushes, no running footsteps in the dark, no nights spent half awake listening for danger. Instead, there was routine. Wake-up bells. Head counts. Lines. Silence. The structure felt unnatural at first. On the street, time moved according to hunger and opportunity. Here, time belonged to someone else. Every minute was scheduled. Every movement was monitored. The rules were written down, but the real ones were learned the same way they were learned on the street, by watching. Who spoke back? Who got punished? Who got ignored? It didn't take long to understand that compliance was rewarded, but respect was earned differently. Survival evolves. The boy did not cry the first night. Not because he wasn't afraid, but because crying felt useless. He had learned early that emotion, when seen, could be used against you. So he lay on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, memorizing cracks like constellations. He listened. Juvenile detention had its own language, whispers through vents, coded taps on walls, looks that carried meaning. He adapted quickly. Adaptation had always been his strongest skill. The difference now was permanence. On the street, you could run. Here, there was nowhere to go. Education that came too late. Classes were mandatory. That word still felt strange. He sat in rooms with whiteboards and faded posters about goals and futures. Teachers spoke slowly, carefully, as if they were afraid of breaking something. He recognized the tone. It was the same tone charity workers used on the street, well-meaning, distant, temporary. He couldn't read at the level they expected. That embarrassment burned hotter than hunger ever had. Rather than ask for help, he acted bored. He disrupted. He joked. He learned that acting like you don't care is safer than admitting you don't know. The system marked him as difficult. He was actually lost. Labels stick faster than truth. Once labeled, everything else followed. Troublemaker. Defiant. High risk. No one asked where he learned his behavior. No one asked what years without stability do to a child's decision-making. They documented what they saw, not what shaped it. The file grew thicker. He learned that records last longer than explanations. Friends made in confinement. He met others like him. Some had homes but no safety. Some had parents but no guidance. Others had simply been in the wrong place long enough for the wrong choices to become permanent. They traded stories quietly, piecing together lives that looked different but felt the same. One truth united them: none of them expected to leave better than they arrived. That expectation mattered. People rise to what is expected of them. They sink just as reliably. The first real fight, it wasn't planned. It never is. A comment. A stare. A misunderstanding amplified by boredom and pride. When the punch landed, it surprised him how natural it felt. His body remembered street rules even when his mind tried to follow institutional ones. The fight was short. The punishment was not. Isolation introduced itself as discipline. Solitude is loud. The room was small. Clean. Empty. Time lost meaning there. No voices. No movement. Just thoughts bouncing endlessly off the walls. For the first time since losing his mother, he felt something close to panic, not fear of others, but fear of himself. The mind fills silence aggressively. Memories surfaced without warning. Regrets sharpened. Anger grew roots. By the time he was released back into the unit, something had changed. He was quieter. That quiet was not peace. It was calculation. Release does not mean freedom. When his sentence ended, there was no celebration. A form. A bag of belongings. A door opening outward. The world felt louder than he remembered. He was older now. Bigger. Harder. And marked in ways no one could see immediately, but many would sense. Probation followed him like a shadow. Curfews. Check-ins. Conditions he didn't fully understand but knew he could violate easily. He had nowhere stable to go. No structure waiting to catch him. The system assumed support existed. It did not. Back to familiar ground. The street recognized him immediately. Not as a child this time, but as someone who had been inside. That status carried weight. People treated him differently. Opportunities changed. The same men who once dismissed him now spoke with interest. His past had become a credential. He told himself he would do things smarter now. That was the most dangerous lie. Small crimes feel harmless. He started with things that felt manageable. Moving items. Watching locations. Carrying money. Nothing violent. Nothing dramatic. He convinced himself it was temporary, a bridge to something better. But bridges can collapse. Each success lowered his fear. Each escape reinforced his belief that he was smarter than the system watching him. He forgot one thing: the system does not forget. The second arrest is faster this time. The police didn't ask many questions. His name triggered recognition. His record filled in gaps before he spoke. Assumptions replaced investigation. He was treated like someone who should have known better. In a way, he did. In another way, no one had ever shown him how. Adult consequences begin early. He crossed into adult court younger than he expected. The room felt colder. The language sharper. The outcomes heavier. No one spoke about rehabilitation anymore. They spoke about deterrence and accountability. Words that sound reasonable until you're the one facing them. The judge looked at his file longer than at his face. That told him everything. The moment of realization sitting in a holding cell, older men around him, he finally understood something that had been forming for years. The street had raised him. The system had shaped him. But neither had prepared him to live differently. They had only taught him how to endure punishment. When survival turns into choice. Adult prison did not announce itself with drama. There was no shock loud enough to mark the moment, no single event that made him understand where he was. Instead, the realization settled slowly, like dust in a closed room. The walls were taller. The faces were older. The silence carried weight. This was not a place that pretended to help. This was a place that assumed you were finished becoming anything else. The first night among men. The first night was the worst, not because of fear, but because of clarity. Juvenile detention had still spoken the language of possibility, even if it rarely delivered it. Adult prison did not bother. Here, no one talked about futures. Conversations were about sentences, time served, time remaining. Life was measured backward. He listened more than he spoke. Listening had saved him before. He learned quickly that respect here wasn't demanded, it was tested. Men watched how he walked, how he stood, how he reacted when bumped or ignored. Every gesture was interpreted as weakness or threat. He chose stillness. Stillness reads as confidence if done correctly. Violence without chaos. Contrary to what he had imagined as a child, adult prison was not constant violence. It was controlled. Violence happened, but it followed rules. Lines existed. Territories mattered. Consequences were understood. The unpredictability of the street was replaced by a rigid, unspoken order. That made it more dangerous. Because once you understood the rules, breaking them was a choice. Learning the currency of control. Money mattered less inside. Control mattered more. Who controlled access to phones? Who controlled protection? Who controlled silence? He learned that aligning himself carefully could mean safety, or destruction. Neutrality was rarely allowed. Doing nothing was often interpreted as choosing the wrong side. The same survival instincts that once kept him alive now pushed him closer to wrongdoing with intention. For the first time, crime was no longer reactive. It was strategic. The first moral shift. The first thing he did that felt different was not violent. It was intentional deception. He lied for advantage, not survival. He manipulated trust to improve his position. He used information the way others use strength. And it worked. That success did something dangerous, it made him feel competent. Competence in prison can feel like power. Power, when tasted for the first time, rarely goes unused. Letters from a life that never was. Occasionally, letters arrived. Not many. Not often. Old charity organizations. Social workers cycling through long lists of lost youth. Once, a teacher from juvenile detention wrote, asking if he wanted help enrolling in a program. He didn't respond. Not because he didn't care, but because the distance between who he was and who that letter imagined felt too wide to cross. Hope can hurt when it feels unrealistic. Becoming useful. Inside prison, usefulness equals protection. He learned skills that had nothing to do with legality. Skills that solved problems quietly. Skills that reduced friction. Skills that made him valuable. With value came expectation. People relied on him now. Reliance binds more tightly than fear. The choice that cannot be undone. The turning point did not come with noise. It came with a request. A favor that required trust. A task that required commitment. An action that crossed from rule-breaking into harm. He hesitated longer than expected. In that hesitation lived the last version of himself that still believed wrongdoing was temporary. Then he agreed. The moment passed quickly. The consequences did not. He told himself it was necessary. He told himself it was survival. But deep down, he knew something had changed. This time, he chose it. Guilt learns to sleep. Guilt does not vanish all at once. At first, it argues. Then it complains. Eventually, it grows quiet. Routine dulls everything. Days blurred into weeks. Weeks into years. His reputation solidified. His name carried meaning inside the walls. He learned to stop imagining release as freedom and start seeing it as transition. Because prison had reshaped him. Not brutally. Efficiently. Time makes identity heavier. As time passed, he noticed something unsettling. New arrivals reminded him of his younger self. Confused. Defensive. Angry without language. Watching everyone. And instead of empathy, he felt distance. That frightened him more than anything else. It meant the street child he once was no longer felt familiar. A mirror he avoided. One afternoon, standing in a reflective surface barely worthy of the word mirror, he studied his face. The eyes were sharper now. The jaw tighter. The softness gone. He searched for the boy who once waited by a wall for a mother who never returned. He couldn't find him. The weight of the END prison does not end lives loudly. It ends them slowly. By the time he reached the last stretch of his sentence, the noise that once defined his days had thinned. The shouts, the arguments, the tension that kept everyone sharp, those had softened into routine. Routine is prison's most powerful tool. It teaches acceptance without asking permission. He had learned how to function inside. That was the problem. Time stops teaching, starts repeating in the early years. Every day had felt instructional. Each mistake brought a lesson. Each conflict clarified rules. Each loss carved caution deeper into his thinking. But as time passed, learning gave way to repetition. Wake. Count. Move. Wait. Eat. Wait. Lock in. The cycle didn't threaten him anymore. It settled around him like weather. This was no longer a place he feared. It was a place he belonged to. That realization carried a quiet grief. The final sentence lands when the final sentence was handed down, longer than anything he had imagined as a child. It didn't feel dramatic. No collapse. No rage. Just a tightening in his chest, as if something inside had finally accepted gravity. The courtroom was clean and distant. The language was formal. The outcome was framed as necessary. He noticed that no one asked how he became the person standing there. Only what to do with him now. The judge looked at him briefly, then returned to the paperwork. That moment would replay in his mind for years. The boy he used to be memory changes in confinement. The past stops feeling linear and starts arriving in fragments. A sound. A smell. A moment without warning. He remembered the apple. The first one he ever stole. The juice running down his wrist. The fear mixed with relief. He wondered if that boy could have been saved, if someone, somewhere, might have noticed the quiet child waiting for a mother who would never return. He didn't indulge that thought for long. Hope without direction had taught him pain before. Responsibility arrives late, but fully there was a time when he blamed everything else. The street. The system. The men who used him. The rules that never bent for him. That time passed. Blame gets heavy when you carry it too long. One night, older now, calmer, less defensive, he admitted something he had avoided for years: he had choices. They were limited. They were unfair. They were shaped by neglect and survival. But they were still choices. That realization did not free him. It grounded him. Prison is a mirror that doesn't lie. Prison strips away performance eventually. The stories men tell about themselves wear thin over time. Reputation fades. Fear loses novelty. What remains is character, whatever version survived. He saw men who never changed, locked in the same anger decade after decade. He saw others soften, not because they became good, but because rage takes energy they no longer had. He saw himself somewhere in between. Not redeemed. Not monstrous. Just unfinished, with no room left to finish. Letters he never sent. He began writing letters he never mailed. Not to victims, he understood that apology does not heal harm. Not to institutions, he no longer expected answers. He wrote to the boy he once was. He wrote about hunger. About learning silence. About mistaking survival for strength. He wrote about how small decisions compound. How identity hardens when unexamined. How waiting for rescue can become a habit that replaces action. He folded the letters and kept them in a box. Words were all he could give now. The myth of transformation. Prison stories often end with transformation. That myth is comforting. The truth is less clean. He did not emerge enlightened. He did not discover a hidden talent that changed everything. He did not suddenly become someone else. He became honest. Honest about what prison can and cannot do. It can restrain. It can punish. It can reflect. It cannot return stolen years. It cannot rewrite early neglect. It cannot teach someone how to live if they were never shown. Watching the cycle continue, new arrivals came in younger than he expected. Each one carried the same posture he once had: defensive, alert, uncertain. He recognized the walk immediately. The way their eyes scanned rooms. The way their shoulders stayed tense even when seated. He wanted to warn them. But warnings from inside sound like lectures. And lectures bounce off fear. So he watched. The cycle continued. The cost that doesn't appear on paper. When people talked about his sentence, they spoke in years. Years are measurable. Loss is not. He lost ordinary moments that never return. The ability to make mistakes privately. The chance to learn slowly. The freedom to fail without permanent record. He lost the version of adulthood that includes correction. Prison replaces correction with finality. Acceptance without excuse. There is a difference between acceptance and excuse. He learned that difference the hard way. Accepting responsibility did not mean forgiving himself. It meant understanding cause and effect without illusion. It meant recognizing that harm does not disappear because it is explained. He stopped trying to justify his actions. Justification had kept him trapped longer than bars ever did. The quiet end years later, when he was moved deeper into the system, farther from the possibility of release, the move felt symbolic. The cell was smaller. The routine stricter. The expectations lower. This was where men stayed. He unpacked slowly. There was no ceremony. The final understanding. Lying on his bunk one night, staring at a ceiling he had memorized by heart, he reached the conclusion that no judge had ever spoken aloud: his life did not collapse because of one wrong act. It collapsed because no one interrupted the early ones. And when the system finally intervened, it did so with punishment instead of guidance. By then, the damage was complete. Where the story ends, he would live out his days inside concrete walls, carrying a past shaped by neglect, choice, and consequence. There would be no dramatic ending. Just time. And in that time, a quiet truth would remain: the street did not create a criminal. The system did not either. They both failed to protect a child long enough for a man to form without direction. Wrongdoing followed. Prison finished the story.